Okay, so now we're going to take a look at the modified Centipede Countercade with the 15-inch monitor next door to one that I'm modifying for a friend of mine with a 60-in-1 kit in it, but with the original screen. So let me just... The one on the left has a Raspberry Pi, so I'm just going to cue it up so you can get an idea of the screen size difference between the 15-inch modified Dell monitor on the left, by the way, a million times brighter and better looking than the monitor on the right, which is the original monitor. So these countercades are kind of interesting. The $99 price point that they're selling for is interesting. I just wish that Arcade1up put a little bit larger screen in. It's a nice unit otherwise, but it's hard to kind of get past the screen size when you're playing games, especially when you're playing, I don't know, something like Donkey Kong. I noticed with those types of games, it was just obvious how kind of small things were. But, it is what it is. Certainly much better with a 60-in-1, as you can see. But when you compare that against the 15-inch monitor, which actually, it's a 15-inch monitor, but I've made my own custom bezel for it. Basically because with the vertical size of the monitor, I had to make a bezel. So it's not really 15 inches right now. It's more like 13, I think maybe 12.5-inch diagonal. The viewable size anyway, with the bezel on it. The bezel is just a piece of plexi that was taped off and spray painted. So that's my standard technique when I do a bezel for any kind of conversion that I'm making. So anyway, it's the 8-inch screen versus maybe a 12.5-inch screen. You can see it makes, in my opinion anyway, kind of a world of difference as far as the size goes, and really makes the countercade itself nice. I mean, adding this 15-inch monitor, which you can do fairly inexpensively. 15-inch monitors are pretty cheap to get hold of. I purchased this one for, I think, $10 from just a computer surplus store. 15-inch monitors, 4:3 ratio monitors like this, square, if you will, monitors, are... no one uses them anymore. They're actually not that easy to find, but when you find them, you can get them cheap because nobody wants them. The 17-inch monitors are plentiful as well because most businesses use them, and they're getting rid of them, the 17-inch 5.4 monitors. So the 15's a little harder to come by, but if you find them, you can usually get them pretty cheap. And I'll show you in a minute how it fits in there, but there's the size comparison. Okay, so now we're on the back. The one on the right, of course, is the one with the 15-inch Dell monitor, and I just made a monitor holder out of a couple pieces of scrap wood using the VESA mounts that are built into the back of the monitor anyway. So you can see it just fits in there once it's decased, and fits in pretty nicely. The Raspberry Pi and whatnot I still have sitting here in my little NES case. I have another one on order that I'll put in here to finish this build off. You can also see that I have the GRS adapter for the trackball that allows you to plug in the standard, original trackball from Arcade1up and make it USB so it'll work with the Pi, which it does. And of course the zero delay encoder's in there, and the wiring, which I'll clean up once I get the Pi and get everything installed. On this side we have the mod with the 60-in-1 card. So we have the adapter that I got off of eBay, and that was about $20 to adapt the monitor. And I left the stock PCB in there in case anyone would want to switch it back down the road. And then the 60-in-1 card's down here, and of course the wiring's all up underneath. But pretty easy to wire up. With the 60-in-1, I use some power splitters, which you can't see in here too well, but basically the stock power brick comes in, and it's split 3 ways. One way goes to the monitor, one way goes to a 5-volt converter, which is on the underside of the control panel. So the 12-volt comes in, and then it's converted to 5-volt, and then that's sent off actually to the power switch, and then the power switch to the 60-in-1. So the on-off switch here will turn the machine on and off, and turn the 60-in-1 on and off, that is. And of course the monitor goes off when there's no signal. And then the other split is another 12-volt split that goes to the 60-in-1 harness, because it needs 12-volt power to run the speaker, the stock speaker. If you were going to use a amplifier of some kind or USB speakers, you could connect them directly to the microphone out on the 60-in-1, and you wouldn't need to give it 12-volt power. But you do need to give it 12-volt power if you're just going to run the speaker directly off the card. So those splitters are fairly easy. Well, you can buy them right off Amazon. Just 2 Y splitters. They come in a package of 2, which is perfect because that gives you the 3 connections you need. And then they're wired up with some other connectors that are made for car stereo installations, basically. But it's kind of nice because it means you don't have to have the arcade power supply in here, which we could have jammed in here if we needed to, but it's a little cheaper actually for the wiring, and I just think it's a more elegant solution anyway than an arcade power supply that takes up a bunch of space and you really don't need. So anyway, that's a look at the 2 builds and a look at the back with the 15-inch monitor, and we'll go from there. So this one on the left is actually one that I'm modifying for a friend of mine, and I have a feeling when he sees the 15-inch monitor here, he's going to want me to do that with his as well, which I did find another 15-inch monitor. I could do it, but I'm going to deliver it to him as is for now and see what he thinks. All right, thanks.